We are discussing the power of habits. The power of habits. We are seeking to understand how to develop positive habits for ourselves. We are also trying to identify what power does a habit have, and how, if it's a bad habit, how do you overcome it? We also will look at the effects habits may have in the entrepreneurial field when you want to start something. What does it take a habit, or what does habit mean? To begin to do something, when you're talking about a habit, you're talking about to begin to do something regularly, often, without thinking about it. Then we say it has become a habit. If it's truly a habit, you don't even think as you are doing it. By the way, driving becomes like that. You don't, when you are a new driver, you have to keep looking, am I in gear 2, gear 3, Once it becomes a habit, you can keep talking and driving without any difficulty. At least that's the definition of making habit from the Cambridge Academic Content Dictionary of Cambridge University Press. But maybe the best way of looking at habit is to think of them as fish to water. The water is habits, the unthinking choices and invisible decisions that surround us every day, and which, just by looking at them, become visible again. In other words, a fish does not even know it is in water, it's used to it. A habit is so much part of you, you can't even notice it. And once you understand that habits can change, you have the freedom, maybe also the responsibility, to remake them once you understand that habits can be rebuilt. The power of habit becomes easier to grasp, and the only option left is to get to work on it. If you ask a fish what water is, he will have no idea, even though he is swimming in it each day. Similarly, habits are the water in our daily lives. They are unconscious behavioral patterns that drive how we spend most of our time. If we want to reshape our lives, we need to consciously recognize the habits that drive our lives and do the hard work required to change the ones that are no longer serving us. Let me start at this stage to say, when you see you see somebody do an act, there is an attitude that has caused the act. There is belief behind the attitude. Your wife gives you food with the left hand. She's used to it. She got used to giving food with the left hand. But you get annoyed. How can you give me food with the left hand? Yet really the food is the same nutrition, it will taste the same way. But you are getting very offended that you are given food with the left hand. Your wife is acting on habit. You are also reacting out of habit. But that, if you really want, you must ask the question, does it make sense to be annoyed because food is offered with the left? You will discover the reason why you are getting annoyed is because somewhere in history, somebody developed in you a message that people who respect you give you things with the right hand. Therefore, your understanding of being given food with the left is disrespect. So you can see there is a belief system behind it. If you want to change and start enjoying your food and enjoying the serving by your wife, you must go back and ask, is that belief reasonable anyway? Just a catcher thing. Some people, if you are left-handed, it will be difficult to use the right hand. So how can that change the food? So once you realize that the belief is silly, you will be not very clever to continue the same belief. So you need to start working on that belief. And if you are able to change the belief, you are going to change the habit and the actions you are taking. So you can see beliefs that are very well hidden. You don't see beliefs. You just see actions. That's why sometimes you take all your time telling people to change behavior. But they can't change behavior until they change their belief system. If, for example, you grew up believing that women are to be used, that women are not like men, there's something wrong with them. In fact, when I was growing up, I used to hear Kikuyu say, "Gea tumia na ihe yetekagio kiarara," meaning you should never trust what women say. It might turn out to be true, but rarely. And of course, they said it is women and uncircumcised boys are not people to listen to. If you grew up with that belief, then you expect your wife to listen to you and not reply and not have things. So you have a habit that causes marital conflict. And until you go back to that belief system and discover how silly it is, because it's totally untrue. It is the assumption of the African man is that women never grow up. They are stuck somewhere in teenage. They never mature. It's totally untrue. And of course, what discovered when they started going to school and they started doing better than men. Now, my friend, once you know that, why continue behaving like women are any less than men? Habits will cause you a lot of problems or help you in a lot of ways. John Maxwell says, and I quote, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." So you need to go to your daily routine and say, what is the belief system this routine is based on? Is that belief system true? And if it's not true, then you change the belief system. That way you will be able to change your routine, which is really your habit, and you discover the result will be different. One of the critical things we call in habit is discipline. Discipline means, what is that discipline? Discipline is what you do, not because you enjoy doing it, but because you know it is good to do. So if you get into a habit of self-discipline, then there are many things you do which you don't enjoy doing, but you know they are useful to achieving your vision and mission. So one of the most important issues we are discussing in this subject is that one of ensuring that your habits are selected to have as to yield a certain end. And that's what we mean by self-discipline as a habit. Self-discipline, they discovered, predicted academic performance more robustly than even your IQ. In other words, if you have somebody with a very high IQ, but he has no self-discipline, he is likely to end up doing worse in an exam than the one with self-discipline. I'm quoting somebody called Charles Duhigg in his book, The Power of Habit, why we do what we do in life and business. And he says, self-discipline also predicted which students would improve their grades over the course of the school year, whereas IQ did not. You cannot tell how students will perform based on the IQ, but self-discipline does. He goes on to say, self-discipline has a bigger effect on academic performance than does intellectual talent. So can you imagine then that when you're interviewing, if you have a business and you're interviewing people, don't go for people with first-class honors in their university degrees. Check for people who are self-disciplined, people who can go over their likes to do what is right rather than what is enjoyable, and do it consistently until it is a habit. They are likely to be better performers in your business than the first-class honors people. That's what the study Charles Duhigg is quoting discovered. So you can see the power of habit. Habit exists to save our brains accurate effort. You see, habits scientists say, emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. Left to its own devices, the brain will try to make almost any routine into a habit, because habits allow our minds to ramp down more often. Biologically, we form habits to save energy, so anything we do regularly will become a habit. That's why if you are doing something regularly, finally it becomes a habit. You don't think. Our brain does not want to waste its effort thinking about something. So it forms a habit, and you do it automatically, so you do not have to engage your brain very much once it becomes a habit. In order to come up with a habit, you need cue, routine, and a reward. This is how new habits are created, by putting together a cue, a routine, and then a reward, and then cultivating a craving that drives the loop. So the moment you discover that so and so did this is what they got. That's a cue. Aya, you mean if I do this, I would also become a millionaire? That's a cue. You create in the process a routine in order not to miss the reward. So you have a routine towards getting to the reward. But you need the reward first. The reward, and then you ask yourself, what did I get by being disciplined, by following this habit? If you think the reward is good enough, you are likely to end up with that habit. Cravings are what drives habits, and figuring out how to spark a craving makes creating a new habit that much easier. Habits are a simple action loop that consists of a cue, a routine, and a reward. For example, waking up in the morning might be the cue that drives the routine of brushing our teeth, which yields the reward of having a clean and refreshed feeling in our mouth. The habit loop is driven by cravings. For instance, we might crave the feeling a clean and refreshed mouth, which will lead us to go through the routine of brushing our teeth when we get the cue of waking up. So you feel like waking up, automatically you want to go and brush your teeth. Maybe because you are meeting your girlfriend today. To understand and change our existing habit, in addition to creating new ones, it is essential. Please listen to me. It is essential we understand the cue, the routine, the reward habit loop. Maybe you should be using the golden rule. The golden rule of habit change is to remember, you can't extinguish a bad habit. You can only change it. So you must replace a habit with something else if you are going to overcome that old habit. Habits are hardwired into our brain. So while it would be nice to be able to erase this hardwiring, it's not possible. So we have to be intentional about changing our bad habits into good ones, rather than focusing on eliminating the bad ones from our system. Since we have heard that habits have the power to produce or not produce results, things we want to have into the future, then it's very important to ask ourselves, if I know this habit I have is going to cause me trouble, how do I change? Maybe you have the habit of putting your finger in your nose, and it almost makes your girlfriend vomit. And you can see you have been dropped by one girl, you have been dropped by another one, you're about to be dropped by the third one because of that bad habit of putting your finger into your nose. How do you change it? To change a habit, you must keep the old cue and deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. That's the rule. If you use the same cue and provide the same reward, you can shift the routine and change the habit. Almost any behavior can be transformed if the cue and reward stay the same. What makes you want to put your finger in your nose? Maybe it's a feeling of discomfort. Whenever you feel a discomfort, so that if you decide whenever you feel a discomfort, you put your hands in your pocket, and in the process you end up feeling nice, because the putting of the finger was making you feel confident, feel you can overcome whatever the urge. What about putting your hands in the pocket? If you put your hand in the pocket, every time you feel like that, you put your hand in the pocket. After some time, your habit will be the habit of putting your hand in the pocket, assuming that's a good habit. To modify a habit, you must decide to change it. You must consciously accept the hard work of identifying the cues and rewards that drive the habit, routines, and find alternatives. You must know you have control and be self-conscious enough to use it. So don't feel like you are a victim of a habit. You can, once you understand it, you go to the foundation to see what causes it, what the cue. You can change the routine so that you get the nice feeling you get without necessarily doing the wrong thing. To change this behavior, for example, if I want to change a habit, we should keep the cue and reward them, but change the routine. For example, imagine that we smoke cigarette every time we drink coffee in the morning. The coffee is a cue. Every time you start taking coffee, you remember to light your cigarette. Smoking a cigarette is a routine. And the high we get, the nice feeling when we drink coffee with the smoking, is the reward from the cigarette. To change this behavior, we need to first of all consciously choose to do so, and then identify the cues and rewards around the routine we would like to change. For instance, we can replace the smoking, a cigarette routine, with something else when we drink morning coffee. We might, for example, do a short exercise routine after we drink our coffee and release endorphins, and these are nice feelings, and give us a high that feels as good as the high from cigarettes. So within no time you'll not be smoking your cigarette, because the cue, you have redirected the cue to doing an exercise. What do we mean by keystone habits? We have to admit that some habits have the power to start a chain reaction, changing other habits as they move through the organization. In other words, if you do this habit, it triggers many other habits. Some habits, in other words, matter more than others in making our business or our family or our lives. We therefore call them keystone habits, because they transform us by creating cultures that make clear the values that in the heat of the difficult decision or a moment of uncertainty we might otherwise forget. Keystone habits are habits that have the power to change habits in other areas of our lives. For instance, exercise is a keystone habit. When we start exercising regularly, we often start doing other healthy behaviors naturally. If you get done with a good workout, instead of grabbing the usual cheeseburger and French fries, we are more likely to grab a healthier snack, such as a protein shake. We also are more likely to get better sleep and feel happier due to the endorphins that are released from exercise. Collectively, these changes will likely make us more successful in our personal and professional lives. If you want to improve your life, identify keystone habits that move you in the direction you want to go. And of course, it will give you rewards that help to make you a successful person. So, what are those? In other words, they are habits you need to check, because they are keystone habits. You do them, they trigger many other habits. And so you might end up going the wrong direction very far. You also need to think about agency. When people are asked to do something that takes self-control, if they think they are doing it for personal reasons, if they feel like it's a choice or something they enjoy because it helps someone else, it's much less taxing. If they feel like they have no autonomy, if they are just following orders, their willpower muscles get tired much faster. In other words, if you want something to develop into habit, people must own it up. They need to do it because they feel like doing it. They need to do it because of an altruistic reason. In other words, it's going to benefit people. So you do it because of... But if you are just doing it because you have been ordered to do it, it will be difficult for it to develop into a habit. Simply giving employees a sense of agency, I'm an agent, a feeling that they are in control. I have a principle, yes, but I am now in control of how I run things. That they have genuine decision-making authority of their own can radically increase how much energy and focus they bring to their jobs, and therefore the productivity of the organization. They will develop habits that benefit the organization once they do things because they have a good reason to do them. It becomes a habit much easier. If we need to do something that requires self-control, our sense of agency has an important role in how taxing that activity is on our brains. For activities we feel that we have chosen, it requires less willpower to accomplish the activity. When you do something because you like it or because you've chosen to do, you are likely to have more energy into it. On the other hand, if you have to do something due to something outside of your control, it will deplete your willpower significantly more. You will feel less energy to do it. This principle is important when we think about how to motivate people to do things in a professional context. So you need to understand, if you want your employees to develop a habit for productivity, they must feel like they still are left with the decision making. That you tell them this is what you want to achieve, they should feel like they are the ones who have chosen the methodology or something, so that they own up, rather than feel like they are over being micromanaged. Another thing that can help you to get a good habit, once you choose as a good habit, is dressing the new habit with the old garb. Whether selling a new song, a new food, or a new crib, the lesson is the same. If you dress a new something in old habits, it's easier for the public to accept it. That means, if I see, that's why you have Colgate this, Colgate that, Colgate the other, because to use Colgate as an example, I've seen Colgate from the time I left the village. I went to university about 50 years ago. 1974 is when I was a first year. And that's the time we became serious because we were getting boom, buying things. Oh yeah, I want to buy Colgate. But after some time, they change it. But they leave the word Colgate. The same thing in Omo. There's Omo this, Omo the other, Omo New Omo, Power More Omo. But the idea is, since you are in the habit of using Omo, you are likely to find it easier to accept the new Omo because you're associating it with the Omo you like. If you introduce a new product or idea to a group, a person's ability to understand and embrace that idea increases if we wrap the idea in something familiar to them. Let's talk about business. Many startups use this principle when they call their product the Uber, the Uber of Kenya, the Uber of Kinangop, the A&B of. In other words, you want people to associate Uber with you. I don't know whether that's legally allowed. We know what Uber and A&B is, so we can better understand what the vision for the new and familiar startup product when it's put in the context of businesses we understand and are comfortable. That's why you find people, even when they want to name a new product, they name it a name that is already well known. I know I have this experience because Shell BP used to work together. Then they broke up and they agreed that the country Shell takes, BP cannot go there for 10 years. And the country that BP takes, BP cannot go there for 10 years. So here we were wanting to go back to Tanzania, where BP had taken over after 10 years. And was the manager asked to try to re-enter, to help with the re-entry back to Tanzania. I can still remember myself in Dar es Salaam 20 years ago, and we are trying to find out where the customer we wanted to start with a mining customer because he was going to buy a lot of fuel since we were in petroleum industry. So we asked where the office is. They said, that office, we know. You keep going. When you reach the Shell, the Shell petrol station, turn right. So I asked, I thought Shell left this country a long time ago. But the brand of Shell is so strong that you are talking the Shell that is Caltex or the Shell that is Total. Because Shell means petrol station. And you can see how powerful it is. So if you really want to sell, you can use the brand that is strong. Once it's associated, it's easier for the customers to go your way. And I hope you understand that. So if you want to develop a new habit, please associate it with an old habit which you enjoy, and you are likely to pick up the new habit much easier and replace the old one. You know, what we are talking about is that habit is the intersection between knowledge, skills, and desire. The Britannica Dictionary definition of habit is a usual way of having something that a person does often in a regular and repeated way. But Steve Covey, the one who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, deals with this subject of habits. And he says that habit is the intersection of knowledge, skills, and desire. Knowledge is the theoretical paradigm. The what to do, that's knowledge. And the why you are doing it, that's knowledge. But skill is different. Skill is how to do it. Not what to do, but how to do it. That means you have skill. You can have knowledge without skill. And desire is the motivation that is making you do the what using the how. The want to do. In order to make something a habit in our lives, we have to have all three. You must have knowledge, you must have the skill, and you must have a motivation for it. That way you will develop a habit. That's a picture that Steve Covey puts of skills, desire, and knowledge. And the intersection is where the habit develops. You know, what we are talking about is that you have a willingness to subordinate what you think. Because as soon as it becomes a habit, it's not something you are going to think. The being and seeing a change is an upward process. It is sometimes a painful process. It's a change that has to be motivated by a higher purpose, by the willingness to subordinate what you think you want now for what you want eventually. You subordinate what you think you want now for what you want eventually. And what you want eventually, you become the winner. Because you are forcing your current feeling like, this is what I need now for the long-term view. That's why Christians are able to live holy lives. Their motivation is to go to heaven, and they feel a temporary, momentary sexual encounter would take away eternity, and it's not worth it. So they're able to say no to sexual temptations and therefore get into habit of holiness because they are thinking long term. So it's not that they are not emotionally. A girl may be dressed badly and therefore she is motivating the boy to do the wrong thing. But the moment they think about the eventual gain in heaven, you end up with the temporary desire for sex is overrun by the eventual desire for going to heaven. It means then you can actually look at your life and experience a self-renewal in every area of your life, in the 4 areas of your life. You need habits that help you to be physically healthy. You need habits that help you to be socially and emotionally healthy. You need habits to help you to become mentally healthy. And you need habits to help you to become spiritually healthy. In each one of the areas, if you don't have a good habit, you destroy yourself. If you have developed a habit of overeating, you become obese. If you have developed a habit of short temper, having a short temper, and feeling it's okay to have a short temper, you will soon be not able to relate with other people. If you have a habit of not thinking, serious thinking, you will discover you are mentally no longer able to think seriously. If you don't have, for example, a systematic quiet time where you meet the Lord one-on-one, you will soon discover your spiritual temperature goes low. So you need, as you renew yourself in each of the 4 areas, you create growth and change in the totality of your life. And so you need to develop emotional, social, physical habits. As I go towards finishing, because I want to open up for discussion, let's look at the habits that are recommended by Covey. He wants you to have, number 1, there are 7 habits. And he says people with these 7 habits are always successful in their professional and other lives. The first one is a habit for proactiveness. This is the ability to control your environment rather than the opposite, as is so often the case. Managers need to control their own environment by using self-determination and the ability to respond to various circumstances. A proactive person never does something before he has gone through it and thought about what can go wrong, what can go right, what can go wrong, how do I manage it so that doesn't go very wrong, what can go right, how do I encourage it so that it becomes even more successful. This is where the word dry run comes in, that you never do the real run until the dry run. If you make a habit of that, you will always be reluctant to make a quick emotional decision because you want time to proactively think about it. Habit number 2, begin with the head in mind. This means that the manager must be able to see the desired outcome first and to concentrate on activities which help to achieve that end. Beginning with the head in mind is related to the proactive principle. You must look at your life. At the age of 80, what do you hear people attending your birthday saying? What will you have accomplished by then? The moment you hear your wife saying, today is my husband's birthday, he has really made my life. He lifts me up when I'm down. He loves me even when I'm not lovable. If you hear that statement at the age of 80, you are now only 30 years, what will happen? You will be working on relating with your wife so that she can have that kind of a statement when you are 80. Begin with the end in mind. Don't do anything until you see the end you want. And then ask yourself, what do I do in order to get that end? People who do that don't waste their lives because everything they do is with the end in mind. Habit number 3, put first things first. Steve Covey is saying a manager must manage his own person personally. And managers should implement activities which aim to achieve the second habit, the one above, with the end in mind. And Covey is saying that habit 2 is the first or mental creation. Habit 3 is the second or physical creation. But put things first will mean you don't do what you feel like, you do what is necessary to put, and that you are now getting into discipline. Habit number 4, always think win-win. This is the most important aspect of interpersonal relationship, because most achievements are based on shared effort. You can hardly achieve much alone. Therefore, the aim needs to be win-win solutions for all. If you begin a business, you have suppliers, you have customers. If you do things just to make profit, you will make the profit in the short term, but that business will not last long. So you need to develop a habit of saying, how is my relating with the supplier going to benefit the supplier? And you go out of your way to ensure you benefit the supplier. Or, how is my dealing with this customer going to make me, how are they going to benefit our relationship? Or is a girlfriend, how is this date going to benefit my girlfriend? So you don't just think of what you get out of the date. You think about what does the other person think of the date. The moment they realize that you care about them, your relationship becomes better. They become more active in producing the things that you want. That way you become more successful. But you need to develop the habit that forces you not to be selfish and self-centered and egocentric, but that to always think, why can't we both win? If we do this together, this is what I'm getting out of it. But I also want to repackage it so that the other person can also win. And it needs to work on it, because in our natural, we don't think win-win. We think win-lose. We want to win, and the other person loses. Habit number 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood. That is Francis of Assisi who said that. By developing and maintaining positive relationship through good communications, the manager or whoever is the leader is understood by others, and he can understand the subordinates. So, always seek to understand and then to be understood. Some people answer the question before it is asked. I know what you're asking. How do you know? And I haven't even finished my question. People who are unable to seek to understand the other person end up not relating well with the other person, end up not fully communicating what they had in their mind. And in the process, the people you are working with might start doing the wrong things, and so you end up with bad productivity. Habit number 6, synergize. This is the habit of creating cooperation, the principle that collaborating towards attaining a purpose often achieves more than could be achieved by individuals working together independently. You have heard of synergy. Synergy means if I can lift 10 pounds and Gamaliel, because he's stronger than me, can lift 15. If we work separately, we'll have a sum total of 25. If we work together, talk how can we do this? How can we improve? And we help each other, we end up producing 30. The extra 5 is called product of synergy. That's when people work together as a team, they always produce better. That's why we have, when a matter is simple, we have 1 judge. When the matter is more serious, we have 3 judges. If you go to Supreme Court, you have 7 judges. The assumption is, if you work together, you are likely to have a better product than when you work alone. So you need a habit of always thinking, instead of doing this thing alone, who can we work with so that we will produce something better? And finally, habit number 7 is what Steve Covey calls sharpen the saw. We should learn from our previous experience, and we should encourage others to do the same. Covey says development is one of the most important aspects for being able to cope with the challenges and for aspiring towards higher levels of ability. Sharpen the saw means if you are doing something, learn from it. and keep getting better. That means you will give time for training, you will give time for experience, you will give time for... That is sharpening the soul. And we are saying each one of these is good, but it will not happen on its own. The things we are talking about changing habit have to be applied for everyone. And you need all the 7, not some of them. You know, we have seen so far, as I go towards finishing, habits are powerful, but they are delicate. They can emerge outside our consciousness. In other words, you can develop habits without being conscious, or can be deliberately designed. You are better off designing them rather than allowing them to just develop. They often occur without our permission, but can be reshaped by fiddling with their parts. They shape our lives far more than we realize. They are so strong, in fact, that they cause our brains to cling to them at the exclusion of all else, including common sense. If you have a habit that's not common sense, you will still do it. And people wonder, how can somebody with a whole degree behave like that? It's because it's become a habit. That's what Charles Duhigg is actually saying. I've listed a number of verses just to tell us about this subject. 1 Timothy 5:13 says, besides, they get into the habit of being idle. In other words, if you are used to being idle, even a little work of 1 hour will feel like they are killing you. So Paul tells Timothy, those kind of people you should not allow. People who get in the habit of being idle, and they end up going about from house to house. Not only do they become idlers, but also busybodies who talk nonsense, saying things they ought not to do. So the Bible warns us about allowing bad habits. Hebrews 10:25 says, you need to have a habit, a good habit. Which one? Not giving up meeting together. A habit of meeting together. As some are in the habit of doing. Can you imagine getting your habit that you don't want to go to church? Maybe you are on church online, and you have gotten so used to it, you never go to a physical church. Paul continues to say, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So they are saying there is habit means if you are used to going to church on Sunday, you have no effort. It doesn't even require effort. You wake up and say, today is Sunday. I'm going to church. There's no effort. But if you don't develop a habit, if it doesn't become a habit, it will be a struggle going to church, as an example. Ephesians 4:28. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. So you can get in the habit of working, but you can also get in the habit of stealing. You make a choice. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we are with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. There are people who enjoy eating things that others have worked for. And they are being told it's a sin. That's a bad habit, where you don't eat your own sweat. You eat other people's sweat. You keep making deals. So not adding any value. The Bible is saying that's a bad habit. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. A good habit is to always do what you do, not for your boss, but for God. The master is still there, but that's not him. Your motivation is God. Another habit. As for you, if you walk before me faithfully, with integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command you and observe my decrees and laws. That's Solomon who was being told. Anyway, I better stop. We need to have a discussion. The note will be sent to you. The things have a series of quotations I wanted to share, but I've run out of time. So I've been talking for almost 45 minutes. Let's allow the MC to take over from there.